You are my joy, you are my song, you are the well, the one I'm drawing from. You are my refuge, my whole life long. Where else would I go? Surely my God is the strength of my soul. Your love defends me, your love defends me, and when I feel like I'm all alone, your love defends me, your love defends me. Day after day, night after night, I will remember you're with me in this fight. Although the battle, it rages on, the war is already won. I know the war is already won. Surely my God is the strength of my soul. Your love defends me, your love defends me, and when I feel like I'm all alone, your love defends me, your love defends me. We sing hallelujah. You're my portion, my salvation. Hallelujah. Surely my God is the strength of my soul. Your love defends me, your love defends me, and when I feel like I'm all alone, your love defends me, your love defends me. Surely my God is the strength of my soul. Your love defends me, your love defends me, and when I feel like I'm all alone, your love defends me, your love defends me. We sing hallelujah. You're my portion, my salvation. Hallelujah. You're my portion, my salvation. Hallelujah. You're my portion, my salvation.
Hello, and welcome to our virtual Ignite, celebrating the Feast of Pentecost. Although we cannot worship and pray together in person as we'd like, We are so blessed to be able to be with you from wherever you're watching or listening today. Our goal and meaning behind Ignite, A Blaze for Christ, is actually centered right around the feast we're celebrating today, that being Pentecost. Pentecost marks the end of the Easter season, and in a lot of ways, Pentecost is like the birthday of the Catholic Church. Let's break this down a bit. Pentecost in Greek means 50th day, and the Gospels tell us that 50 days after Easter Sunday, Christ's resurrection from the dead, we celebrate the coming of the Holy Spirit onto the apostles, marking the beginning of Jesus' instruction to the apostles to evangelize, making disciples of all nations. So, what does this great feast of Pentecost mean for us today? To answer this question and to provide some truly enlightening words, we have well-known speaker and worship leader Andrew LaBakker here to share some words with us. Andrew, also known as ALOB, has traveled across North America singing and speaking to youth and adults alike and spreading the gospel. We were so blessed to have him with us in person last year, right around this time. And although he can't be with us again this year, he wanted to share some words with you from his home in Ventura, California, about the meaning of Pentecost in our world today. Enjoy.
Everybody, I hope you're doing well. My name's Andrew LaBakker. ALOB's my nickname. I'm here in Southern California and I miss all you Canadians. I hope you're safe and healthy during this crazy pandemic that's going on in the world. So for just a couple minutes here, just want to encourage you, share with you some scriptures that Augie and the squad want me to talk about. So shout out to all my Canadian peeps. I'm praying for you. And I really am excited about this theme of Ignite and Pentecost. So I want to share these two scriptures. We're just going to do like 5 minutes. It's going to be really quick. But one of the biggest problems I see in the church today is that as a whole, doesn't matter if you're young or old, we've forgotten about God and the Holy Spirit. He's like the forgotten dude just hanging out in the corner. No one picked him, to go play basketball that day. He's just sitting on the bench. And man, the Holy Spirit wants to get in the game. Okay, so when we come to understand who the Holy Spirit is, what his function is, and how we can relate to him every day, it's going to transform your Christian existence. So I'm going to read to you from Acts chapter 2, 1 through 11. Just work with me. We're going to go through Pentecost real quick, and then a little bit from John's Gospel, and then I'm going to close with just some thoughts. So this is Acts 2, 1 through 11. Then the day of Pentecost had come. They were all together in one place, and suddenly a sound came from heaven like the rush of a mighty wind, and it filled the house where they were sitting. And there appeared to them tongues as of fire, distributed and resting on each one of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues, and the Spirit gave them utterance. Now there were dwelling in Jerusalem Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven. And at this sound the multitude came together, and they were bewildered, because each one heard them speaking in his own language. And they were amazed and wondered, saying, Are not all these who are speaking Galileans? And how is it that we hear each of us in our own native language? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and residents of Mesopotamia and Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia. I don't know any of these words. Egypt and the parts of Libya and belonging to Cyrene, and visitors from Rome, both Jews and proselytes and Cretans and Arabians. We hear them telling in our own tongues the mighty works of God. And all were amazed and perplexed, saying to one another, What does this mean? But others mocking said, They are filled with new wine. Okay, let's break that open really quick. Holy Spirit comes. He is the promise of the Father. Jesus did not just come to make you feel good, have a perfect life, not suffer, and not have any questions. Jesus actually came to enter into the deepest recesses of the heart and renew us and strengthen us and fill us with his love so that we could go out and share that with others. That's the Christian message, is Jesus came not to just make us, have these rules and go to church and be a good person. He came to actually create a place in our hearts for him to be housed. Our bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit, right? So when Jesus went to the cross, his paschal mystery, which actually means Passover, his Passover, his new Exodus, was accomplished by his resurrection. And then, boom, he's like, it's better that I go. I'm going to send the Holy Spirit so he can live in you, so you don't have to live this life alone anymore. So this is what starts happening, is the Holy Spirit is sent, the promise of the Father. They get blasted. These like tongues of fire actually mean, in the Hebrew, I believe, raging flames. So this isn't this just like cute little, moment where they're like, oh, they're like getting blasted by the Holy Spirit. And literally people think they're drunk. They are filled with new wine. And obviously all these people from all over that area, half the names I don't even know how to say, but they all heard them preaching in their own native tongue. So this is right off the bat, the church is starting with a supernatural reality, and the boldness of the disciples is overwhelming to where people are amazed and perplexed. They think they're drunk. Okay, and Peter actually goes on to say, there's no way we're drunk. It's 9 a.m. in the morning. We're not lit, okay? So what does this mean for you and me? Well, in order for us to experience a life of no fear, to experience a life of relationship and intimacy with God, we have to start inviting the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit exists to sanctify us, to fill us with the fruits and the cares of the Holy Spirit, and to send us out. What's the first thing that the Holy Spirit did to these men when they were caught up in the upper room, freaked out? What's the first thing they sent them out to do? Preach the gospel. That was the first thing they did. They came out of those doors and began to share the good news of the gospel. And guess what? In this quarantine, I don't know about you in Canada, but in Southern California, we've been cooped up too. We're starting to open up. But man, what if this time we can take to reflect on what really matters? Like, what is life really about? It's not about accomplishment or accumulation or the right test scores or getting to the right school to get the right job. Those aren't bad things. But when we obsess about them and put that above our relationship with God, it's going to be really difficult for us to be filled with the Holy Spirit so we can be sent out. This is the mission of Jesus, is to fill us with his divine life, his grace, so that we can go out and witness to his love, to his reality that he was crucified for us. So we don't have to live in sin or in condemnation, but we get to live in the freedom of the sons and daughters of God. This is good news. This is the most exciting thing you'll ever hear. If Jesus really rose from the dead, which I believe all the evidence, historically, the archaeological evidence, the evidence from non-biblical sources, such as Josephus and Tacitus and many other writers are pointing to the reality that Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. And when he sent his Holy Spirit, he filled us with that same power. It says in the scriptures that the same Spirit that rose Jesus from the grave lives in us. You, baptized Christian, now house the Holy Spirit. You now can experience no fear. This is actually possible because of what Jesus did. So real quickly, in John's Gospel, this is crucial. On the evening of that day, this is John chapter 21, verse 19. On that evening of the day, the first day of the week, the doors being shut where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." Now, this is something that Jesus was very clear multiple times saying, "Peace be with you." Guess what? When Jesus shows up with the power of the Holy Spirit, you can receive peace. There's no greater moment in history where the souls of every human being right now need peace. So I just want to invite you to allow God during this time to ignite you. There's no reason to be afraid. Death is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Yes, there's insane suffering happening right now. And those questions and those mysteries we have to enter into. And guess what? We don't have all the answers. We're going to have to enter into some really tough questions these next couple years. And the only way we're going to be able to do that with God and with one another is by the power of the Holy Spirit. He wants to give you a life of no fear. Think about the worst thing that can happen in your life. You can face that with the power of the gospel and the power of the Holy Spirit. Peace I give you, peace I leave you. So my prayer is that you begin to just foster a life in the Holy Spirit every day. Take 5 minutes a day. Ask the Holy Spirit to come. Come, Holy Spirit. Pentecost was not just for the disciples, it's for you and me. So we have to start asking. Ask and you shall receive. Jesus wants to give you his Spirit. The Father wants to give you his Spirit. It's the love of God poured out into our hearts. You can live a life without fear. That doesn't mean there's not going to be suffering, because there is going to be suffering. But you can enter into that suffering with the perspective of hope, renewal, and regeneration. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. God is with you. The Holy Spirit is real. He's not just some myth. He's real. So allow him into your hearts this day. Allow him into your hearts this week. And just begin to foster a relationship with Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I believe you will experience the life and life in abundance that Jesus promises. So I'm praying for you. Get into the scriptures. There's so much more to this. But just know that the Holy Spirit wants to show up in your life in power and peace. And I'm praying for you guys. I miss you. One day I will be back in Canada and we will get to hang out and it's going to be dope. All right. Peace out.
What a powerful reflection and a beautiful song. Thank you, ALOB, for doing this for our community, and thank you for your message of hope. Our call this Pentecost is truly a call to evangelization, a call to spread the good news, to preach the gospel with our lives and our witness to faith. This Pentecost, Christ reminds us and calls us to be a missionary church, people who are not afraid of the future, people who live in joy, and more importantly, people of peace. Like ALOB said, Jesus' beautiful message of peace to his disciples 2,000 years ago extends to us in our very moment today. So be at peace, trust in his plan, and receive the Holy Spirit. And celebrate. This is truly good news. Thank you to everyone who helped put this virtual Ignite together. Thank you to ALOB. Thank you to our music team. We couldn't have done it without you. And thank you to our wonderful pastoral staff. Thank you. Have a very happy Pentecost. And let's finish and celebrate in song.
Who am I that I, King, would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free. Oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. Father's house.